YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, it's almost at the end of the month, and like any other, we will talk about the tier list. There are a couple of here. I think we got like 36 decks here that we need to categorize on the 3 tiers, excluding the rogue and the needs a good pilot type of category. But anyways, let's start. So first and foremost, we have Black Wings. So Black Wings, I would say, really needs a good pilot. Although, if you are going to put them in a tier, I think they are practically rogue. And settling with if you are a really good pilot, you can settle with 3 copies of Assault Dragon on the field. But it's not enough. It can easily be broken. Duel, Lockbird, Ash Blossom, and Maxi, first and foremost, are very prominent with the current meta nowadays. Next up, we'll have Branded Espia. Branded Espia is a really good grind type of deck compared to Snake Eyes. Is that from early, mid to late game, the recursion for Branded Espia is just phenomenal. Like you can just recycle back all of the cards that you practically need from your banished pile, from your graveyard, up to your hand or back to your deck. And then summon the same monsters all over again to the field. Really scary for this type of deck. I can't say anything about this deck, but this is one of the scariest decks that I really am afraid to go up against rank. Next, we have Dynamorpheus. Now, I had a ton of fun with Dynamorpheus. For pure Dynamorpheus, I do prefer this is a really good tier 3 deck. A face-up skill drain is always going to be a problem. Then we have the new dinos. New dinos, I would say, they are really good. It's kind of like Dynamorpheus, but I think dinos are going to have a hard time, but they are still a really strong deck. If you ever have the Miscellaneous Source, Miss is always going to be the go-to card to protect your dinos from ever getting wiped on the board. Then we have the current Dragon Links. Now, I've seen some players still cope in playing Dragon Links in rank with another variant, of course. And I do believe that having a good pilot for Dragon Links makes it a little bit better. The last game that I had with or against a Dragon Link deck was in Diamond 1. After that, I haven't seen any more in Masters. So next up, we have Exo Sisters. Exo Sisters, I would say, are a really good tier 3 deck next to Dinos. The best thing about Exo Sisters is that they don't really care about the graveyard so much. That's why they can run Shifter. Shifter is still a really good hand trap against Snake Eyes. So having to dump a copy of Shifter can eventually win you most of your games. But if you ever drew into a copy of Shifter in mid to late game, that would be a pretty bad brick. Then we have Floanderies. Floanderies, I haven't seen any games by far with players using Floanderies. Having a face-up Empen, especially with the current format of all links, Empen is really going to stand out in a Floanderies deck. There are a couple of limits for the deck. That would be one of the downsides there. But if ever you drew into or got a copy of the correct Floanderies cards, especially with the Harpy's Featherstorm, I think you'll win most of your games. Then we have Gold Pride. Gold Pride as a soul deck basically is typically rogue. But if you're running this with the punks, I think this might be a really good tier 3 deck by far, maybe after Exo Sisters. The punks was actually more effective in gaining you more wins rather than the other decks. Then we have Heroes. Heroes are basically really good with the current meta nowadays. Dark Law to the field to banish all the cards. Plasma is still very prominent. I've seen some decks that run Plasma, but it needs a really good pilot just to make this deck really work, because there are a ton of supports for Heroes, not to mention on 4 or 5 secret packs that you can go into for the current meta. Then we have Infernobles. Infernobles, I would say, it depends on a really good pilot. Infernobles is basically a freestyle type of deck, depending on the cards that you're dealt with during your starting hand. So I do prefer, or I do believe that this needs a really good pilot to actually be good in the game. And then we have Kashtiras. Now, Kashtiras are still really good, but the 1 copy of Birth is one of its downfalls. Basically, Birth is one of the most powerful spell cards for the arsenal as well. Then we have Labyrinth. Labyrinth, I would say, before it was tier 1, but in my own standing now for the current meta, it is basically tier 2. Maybe this will change from time to time if ever we'll get the new trap card in a couple of months so far. But as of now, it's still really powerful, but not to an extent that it is paired up with Branded and Snake Eyes. And then we have Manadium. Now, Manadium just got a new support, which is the Crimson Dragon, which is a really powerful synchro monster for this arsenal. Now, people are running Calamity Locks from here to there for any type of synchro deck as long as you can summon the Crimson Dragon to the field. This by far is still a really good tier 2 deck, I would say. I think this is ahead of Labyrinth, I would say, but if ever Labyrinth can get a really good hand, they can play on tier 0. Then we have Marinces. I don't know why he plays this one here, but this is basically Rogue. Yeah, after Gold Pride. Then we have Mathmex. Mathmex, the one copy of Diameter wasn't too much of a hassle. You barely feel it. The 2 copies of Silent Mining was kind of a soft nerf, but not to the extent that it kills the deck by far. But I would say it was tier 1 before, and I'm still gonna follow through on that as being one of the best tier 1 decks as well. Not to compare with Branded SPS or Snake Eyes, but this is still a really good tier 1 deck. Mechanicals, basically Rogue, or possibly tier 3. No, I'm gonna put this one on Rogue because there are some situations going first or going second. You will always have like a bricky hand. It's either more equip spells or kaijus or board breakers. Then we have Runix. Now Runix as a pure deck is basically Rogue, but if you're gonna run this with Naturius, this is probably a tier 3 deck. A really good tier 3 deck, I would say. Pendulum Magicians. Really good tier 3 deck. It's the same as Endymions. Pendulum Magicians are much better because Endymions you need spell counters to make your deck really good. Then we have Punks. The pure version for Punks is basically Rogue. But if you're gonna run this with Gold Pride, I think this is I'm gonna just put them side by side. So it's either Gold Pride or Punks at this point. These 2 cards match together. They're really good. Tierlies, at the moment, I can consider them as a Rogue deck. Maybe at the current state because they got Delicious Memory to 1 copy and Purely's, or was it Purely Lily was on 2 copy. But yeah, there's some semi-limits to their decks as well. Although this might seem a little bit better once we'll get the Purely Noir in the follow or in a couple of months. I think I can put this one here before Gold Pride and Punks. Then we have Rescue Ace. Rescue Ace with the current Snake Eyes matchup, I think this is one of the best tier 2 decks, I would say. Allowing you to gain access to your spell and traps on your turn, especially with the help of the Snake Eyes, allows you to go into more link plays. And this is without the emergency and a copy of Preventer just yet. So this is still looking pretty good for Rescue Ace. It might not be like a strong competitor against Minidiums or Labyrinth, but this is still a really good tier 2 deck. Hopefully we'll get the new supports by the next month or so. So this might be an upper echelon of tier 1. But yeah, tier 2 basically. Rikas, really good tier 3 deck. Maybe around this part right here. Combo deck, really good. But with the current format of Nibiru's and Maxis, I'm just gonna put this on a safe side as tier 3, just between Dinomorpheus and Dinos. Scareclaws, really good tier 3 deck, probably around these parts right here, maybe between Runic and Pendulum Magicians. Then we have Sky Strikers. Sky Strikers is still good, probably a really good tier 3 deck, but that is just being generous. So I'm gonna put this one here as a Rogue. They're kind of good. They're still pretty good though, as long as you have the right cards on hand, but it's really hard to actually excavate your deck nowadays. You can't depend on Upstart Goblin or Chicken Game most of the time. Also, snowballing for Sky Strikers will take a long time, but if you manage to go through mid to late game, that would be beneficial for this deck. Then we have Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes is definitely a tier 1 deck. The recursion for the branded is really strong. The grind game is almost the same as Snake Eyes, but the recursion for branded is much better than Snake Eyes. I can say that. So I'm gonna stand my ground with regards to branded as the really best deck as a tier 1. Next will be Snake Eyes. Sprites, I would say basically Rogue. Hard to perform this current deck nowadays, although a lot of variants has been coming up. As of now, Tri-Brigade Sprite is one of the strongest decks nowadays running in Masters. So yeah, you can check that one out. But by far, it is practically Rogue. Super Heavy. I'm gonna put this one tier 2 or low tier 2. Am I being generous here? Yeah, Super Heavy, in my own opinion, falls into a Nibiru, falls into a Maxi falls into a Drill and Lockbird, but Drill and Lockbird, you can still make like 2 to 3 negates on the board, even under Drill and Lockbird. But Maxi and Nibiru, I think it's gonna be hard. But yeah, I'm gonna put this one on tier 2, possibly top tier 3. I'm gonna put this one on top tier 3, just for the sake of it. Yeah, right? So yeah, Sword Soul, tier 3 deck, really good. Maybe around tier 3 after Super Heavies. Synchrons, the new Synchrons, people are gonna run Calamity Locks for the new Synchrons. I'm really seeing King Calamity gonna be banned in the next format because this is just insane. So, regards to category, I can put this one on Rogue. Then you have TG. I've had a previous version where you can go into Calamity Lock. Calamity Locks are kind of boring. Another version for this is with the Snake Eyes. It is kind of good though. If ever I would rank that one, is going to be like after Super Heavies. Tier Elements, it's really awkward from time to time because you'll end up with more Garnets than your Tier Element monsters. It really depends on your hand. So I'm going to put this one around, maybe here, after Runic. Then you have Thunder Dragons, basically Rogue. Although the face-up Colossus is a face-up Drill and Lockbird though, against Snake Eyes or against branded SPS, really hard. So I'm gonna put this one next to Synchrons. Trap Tricks, really good tier 3 deck, maybe around here. Easy enough to use. Summon one Trap Tricks monster, link it off into Sarah, and then basically set more cards. Activate it during your opponent's turn. But yeah, there's a problem with that as well, especially if you're going up against some of the meta decks. Then you have Tri Brigade. I'm just gonna put this beside Sprites because they are really good paired with each other. Then we have Vanquish Soul, really good tier 2 deck. I am confused whether I'm gonna put this one ahead of Rescue Ace or after Rescue Ace, I would say. No problem with this deck by far. Also, this can run Shifter. So maybe, yeah, maybe after Rescue Ace, that would be somewhat understandable, right? Then last card, or last archetype, or last deck, I would say, is Zodiacs. Basically Rogue, but if you're running this with Kashtiras, this might possibly be a tier 3 deck, I can say. But it will be like around these parts right here, like here, if you're gonna run that one with Kashiras. If not, just here. But anyways, that is the tier list for you guys. What are your thoughts on the tier list? Please tell me in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep safe, good luck, and goodbye.